Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm your host, Lisa Oligas. In this episode, we're going to focus on Black history in Joplin and how it impacts future generations. In honor of Black History Month, we will be examining issues with several Joplin leaders who are making strides in the Black community. Through outreach, education, and unity, these leaders have become well respected and take pride in the areas they represent. Today on the show, we're going to speak with Nanda Nunley about Black history in Joplin and prominent citizens. We have a student-led discussion with the Black Student Alliance coordinator and member, and an interview with Joplin Mayor Pro Tem Keenan Cortez. Joining me now is Nanda Nunley. She's a member of the Missouri Democratic Party Black Caucus and is chairholder of the Unity and Diversity Committee. Thank you, Nanda, for being here once again.
Having me.
We're so glad to have you. Tell us about your role in representing the Black community, not only in Joplin, but also statewide.
Yes, so several years ago, we formed for the first time the Black Caucus of the Missouri Democratic Party. So we work with members of the community all across the state of Missouri and just try to think about issues that directly affect Black community members and work to help alleviate some of those.
Do you feel like you're starting more conversations? What's the mission here, and how do you make it happen?
So yes, we are starting more conversations. We are trying to make it beneficial, not just during election time, when people are out there looking for your vote, but during other times when you really need, you need a voice.
Right. Yeah. Earlier this year, you were part of the big reveal of the mural downtown, the Black History mural, and that's really says a lot about the people from Joplin and then even just across the nation. Tell us about some of those prominent citizens we've had in Joplin from the Black community.
Yes, so on one person that comes to mind because of the name of the mural, the Joplin Uplift, which was a Black owned and edited newspaper here, Augustus Tutt. Augustus Tutt started that newspaper back in the 1920s, and his legacy is far-reaching. I had the opportunity over the weekend in Philadelphia to meet his granddaughter, Congresswoman Barbara Lee from California. She is her father was the son of Augustus Tutt, and so you know that our history does not just stay right here in Joplin; it continues out. And it was a really wonderful meeting with her, and she didn't even know that her grandfather had started that newspaper in Joplin. So just, finding and connecting with people in those ways.
Right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you also represent on the murals Langston Hughes, which we have that society. And tell us a little bit about Langston and then other folks. At the time of segregation, Joplin had Lincoln School and Marion Dial was the principal. Why is it important for us to remember efforts and the roles of those folks in the community?
It's most important because it was hard back then. It was just hard. And so we need to remember those struggles that they had in order for us to live the lives that we live now. Langston Hughes as this prolific writer of poetry and essays and books, and he died basically penniless. He was not able. We think of a writer as in his stead now. You would definitely have monetary, things
royalties from your books.
Right.
And he did plays and musicals even.
Right. The musicians and singers that are on the mural, the difficulty they had in doing their craft, during that time and not being able to stay in hotels. Members of their band, if they were white, could stay in hotels, but the headliners, such as Count Basie and Ella Fitzgerald, they weren't allowed to stay in a hotel. Can you just imagine how that would affect you in that way? So that's the important thing. Mr. Marion Dial, what a man. He was our first Black city councilman. He did so much in this community that still resonates today, such as the Minnehackney Community Service Center. He and two other ladies, they were the founders of the Negro Service Council, now called the Minnehackney Community Service Center. So their legacies live on, but it's important for our children and our grandchildren to know those legacies and where we came from.
it's also important to recognize that they were able to achieve. They fought through, they struggled, they able to, and they set the pace for folks like you to do even more.
Yeah.
What is the Mini Hackney Community Service Center doing now, and what are some of the things you want to have the community be involved with the center?
Yeah, so the Mini Hackney Community Service Center is basically a building that is owned by the council, the Negro Service Council, and so it's open for many different things. We coming up, we have an open mic night on the 17th, where we'll have food and drinks, and people can come in, and we also offer art classes. We have had yoga classes and different types of movement classes there. For a long time, it was a place that fed our elderly members of the community, and now we feed some of the unhoused members of our community. So every week, 2 times a week, we feed people in the building, or prepare meals in the building and take it out to people in the community. So we're still trying to do the service that it was started for.
Which is excellent, and
Yeah.
helping the community. Why is it important to have Black History Month, to educate people about the talents and contributions of individuals? I mean, we see that on the mural, it's a great educational piece, but also in other ways, and to make sure people understand, hey, we have a place here, we are part of Joplin's history.
Yeah. Well, as my T-shirt says, Black history is American history, and that's why it's so important. For a long time, people had an idea that Black history started, say, at the Civil Rights Movement or at the end of slavery, but Black history is rich and it is deep. And so it's just important for us to know, not just the singers and performers, but the inventors and the educators and the entrepreneurs. So it can't fit in a month. We're not trying to say that it can fit in a month, but we want, it's our duty to continue to educate and show and talk about these things. Because again, Black history is American history. It's our history, each of us, every one of us.
And many accomplishments we should recognize. I mean, we all hear around George Washington Carver, but there's many other individuals, and it's nice to recognize Marion Dial and others. Yeah. Do you feel like schools are doing a better job of educating our students about Black history as part of American history?
I do believe they're doing a better job. But we can always do better. We can always do more. And so I just think that every opportunity that we can to relate it to something that has to do with our American history, all of our American history, that's just important. So.
All right, excellent. Thank you, not only for all you do for the community.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being here. Coming up next on Newsmakers, we have a student-led discussion by host Jasmine Knight. She'll be in conversation with members of the Black Student Alliance. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Today, I am Jasmine Knight. Joining me today is Marcel John and Nikayla Bailey, both on MSSU's Black Student Alliance. How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty
That's
good.
good. So why did you guys join the Black Student Alliance?
Well, my friend group has started the Black Student Alliance as freshmen here because they didn't have anything for Black History Month our freshman year. I remember they did like a whiteout game, and it was just like we felt like we didn't have any representation or anybody that really supported us on campus, so we just decided to, start something our own.
So what's your goal here with the Alliance?
We really just want to like have a presence on campus,
Yeah.
you know, and just have that black community. A lot of people are missing because, you know, Joplin, we really don't have a big black community, or at least that we know of. And a lot of people went through like culture shock coming from big cities to here because it's a small city. So we really just want to create that sense of community you'd get at home.
Yeah.
And just educate people, you know.
All right. So how do you think the campus is excelling in terms of diversity and inclusion?
My role in the BSA has helped me realize like there's a lot more people on campus that are willing to help and to reach out and to make a difference on campus. So I can see like we have the support. It's just getting everything figured out really. But other than that, it's a lot more diverse. Like we have a lot more black students now, so I can see it improving. It's just
So I know y'all are making strides in your BSA and everything like that, but how do you think the campus could improve on diversity and inclusion as well?
I personally believe the way a strive at least is including more and more organizations like BSA, but not only just for black students, but for many other ethnic groups, because with this, not such as like a divide, but there is much of a huge gap between what is and what's not on campus in terms of presence. So like something I tried doing a while back was bringing down some of the Divine Nine down to MSSU. It didn't work out because some of them weren't charter, but it's still small efforts like that. If we did have like small Greek life, which is huge in our black community, by adding like Alpha Phi Alpha, Omega Psi Phi, and then any other parts of the Divine Nine to come down to our campus, which comes down not only helping for black students, but incorporate the other organizations and other ethnic groups can do the same.
So why do you think having all those different organizations and just black unity in general is important?
It's more part of like the culturalization aspect, because it provides like we offer this, it invites more people to like creation, brainstorming, because not only is it great for all of us to be a part of something, but it's not more inclusive. It's not less than inclusive for having other people to be a part of what we started and what they can add to, if not make better. It's for our small school. It's like incredibly economically resourceful that many people are brainstorming for one thing, but then we're all adding more to what we already have.
Yeah. So for both of you guys, who's a black leader that you guys look up to and why?
Before I would have said Martin Luther King and stuff like that, but it's very general. But now in terms of today's society, so I want to say and point at a TikToker. His name's Conscious Lee. I look up to him very much on how he speaks on black issues, on top of what goes on within the black community, how we target and how we can handle also how a lot of us are targeted and misinterpreted by small things that happen on a day-to-day basis. And just going over aspects and talking about the bias in media, how we're portrayed, whereas the uplifting is also by people that bring us.
Personally, I would say mine is someone that I've met in Joplin. Her name is Sarita, and she's the head of the NAACP Joplin chapter here, and she's really been a mentor for me. She's like helped me connect with people in the community, and she's like really adamant on changing like the narrative here. She's trying to get, you know, Joplin's history well known, and she's trying to like do big things for the black community here. And she's just like, she's very loving, like just to be around her, like she's just inspiring to me, and I want to, you know, make her proud and just be there.
Well, so far what y'all doing is definitely making your leaders proud, so I'm proud of y'all for that. As people try to educate themselves in other communities, not just the black community, what are some do's and don'ts that you have for them?
Oh, a big one, don't say the N-word. Without a doubt, please.
I feel like the biggest don't for me is don't try to like sugarcoat it or walk on eggshells. We know what happened in history and you can't change it. So for you to like try to dance around the fact that, you know, slavery and Yeah, that's a big no for me. Just tell it how it is. We're all adults. We're all grown. Just have them hard conversations that need to be had.
So as far as hard conversations, growing up in school, there's the hard conversations come up. So do you think that schools are doing a better job of teaching Black history nowadays?
Currently, I'm taking a Black literature class that MSSU have this semester, and I really like it because the teacher, he goes into depth about how we as a society feel uncomfortable talking about these things because it shows us who we really are.
Yeah.
And I feel like courses like that and teachers like that are what we need more on this campus, and I feel like just having that class this semester is a big step in the right direction.
I personally believe we're almost at a standstill, especially with states like Florida completely banning all books of Black history and Black aspects, and how a lot of critical race theory is being banned within states, and not teaching them the proper education of how Black people were mistreated. You can go to any student in a high school probably within 5 miles here, they won't tell you what happened in Tuskegee experiments, or what happened in Tulsa, or what happened in Lake Lanier, stuff like that, like small Black history, but very impactful to us because it's never been talked about. So it's kind of washed down or wiped out completely, because already a lot of our cultures and history's been wiped out completely. So it's kind of hard to say if we're progressive or if we're just going backwards. But I feel like we're right now at a standstill in terms of Black education, and but taking these Black literature courses do help regardless. But I feel like if more professors just push this, then it would also help as much as history and education towards not only Black students, but to everyone that needs to know about what's going on.
Yeah, I totally agree. So for the younger generations, what are some advice that you have for them growing up in the Black culture and going through school and navigating life?
I would just say don't be afraid to speak up. We need people who are going to advocate for us because we're, left out all the time. We're always overlooked. So don't be afraid to speak up and speak your truth, and, speak out if you feel discriminated against, or if you feel, there's things that need to be said.
I wholeheartedly agree. One thing that was hard growing up is just being able to be yourself, because being Black we're already held to a standard to professionalism no matter what. So being you, being true is the best thing you can be, especially as a Black student or a Black person in general.
So do you feel like there's any criticism that we face as Black individuals when it comes to succeeding? Is there anything that we should do about that?
Every day. In terms of success, a lot of us see us as only for entertainment purposes, and it's kind of hard to move past that boundary, but success is very vague. It's depending on what you do and how you adapt to it. It's really just it's as simple as we all make it sound. Not everybody's the same levels of success. You're never going to be this, you're never going to be that. But if you're comfortable within your own financial security, within anything in your own home, you're successful no matter what.
And success is everyone's competing against each other. And for us in the Black community, I feel like we already started off, behind everyone else. So we already are trying to play catch up with the rest of society. Correct. On top of make a narrative for our own self. So it is a lot of pressure behind that. But
all right, well, thank y'all for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation today. Next up, we have Lisa Oligus returns to talk with Keenan Cortez, Joplin's Mayor Pro Tem.
Welcome back to Newsmakers, where we are focusing on Black History Month. Our next guest is Keenan Cortez, who serves as a Joplin City Council member and is the current Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for joining us, Keenan.
Well, hello, Lisa. How are you today?
I'm doing well. You?
I'm doing pretty good.
We are so glad to have you, and I'm so proud that Joplin has you as Mayor Pro Tem, and I want you to talk about how important it is that we have Black representation on our City Council. I mean, before you, we also had Melody Colbert-Keene as mayor. Tell us why that is so significant.
Well, I think it's important that our elected government, our elected officials represent the community in which we live. And although the population of minorities, specifically African Americans in our community, is much smaller than the majority, I still think it's important to have that representation in that governmental body to help kind of make sure those interests of the people are adhered to.
So what do you feel like maybe some of the challenges for being a Black man in politics?
Wow, that's a big question. And I don't know if I'd necessarily call them challenges. I just think they're things that we need to be aware of. One is, I think the Black community has a little different perspective. And I think it's important that perspective be acknowledged and adhered to in a certain way, that you know, our experience has been a little bit different in this country and in this community over the years. So having that perspective on the City Council to be able to keep that at the forefront and on people's minds, I think is important, so that those communities can be represented as well.
So you and I have talked. Let's talk a little bit about your history. You grew up in Carthage area?
I did. I'm originally from Carthage, Missouri. I was born at the old McCumberg's Hospital a long time ago. Had a great childhood, went through all the schools over there in Carthage, ended up moving to Texas after a little while, but come from a really large family. I have lots of aunts and uncles and cousins and all that. A lot of them still live in the Carthage area, but many have moved on and branched out across this nation. But I came up in a time, you know, in the 60s and 70s when things were still a little divided and there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for people of color. But I'm glad that I had those experiences. I'm glad that I was able to come up in a time such as that. So it keeps me grounded and centered on things today.
Well, and not to mention that we need to remember the past. And you had once told me a story about watching your grandmother working as a child. Tell me a little about how that influenced you, that time period, watching her, watching your mom, you know, and in the work area, and how those relationships maybe inform you today.
Well, you know, back in the 60s and 70s, people of color were generally in service roles. We did a lot of laundry, we cleaned a lot of houses. My grandfather had the nickname of Nig, and he was a local mechanic. And he fixed a lot of people's cars, but it was interesting to see that people would come to us for those things and come to my grandmother. And I remember watching her, and we're not talking about the washing machines that we use today,
right,
in washing clothes and ironing clothes and doing things like that. And she loved to bake and cook, and she was really good at it. And so a lot of people came to her for those type of things as well. And what I gathered from that, and what sticks with me today, is just her work ethic. And her ability to be able to know that she had to get up and get things done and make a difference in not only our family and being able to have some type of income for the family, but to make a difference in other people's lives too. It may have been just in a service role, but what she did for people made a difference in how they lived and how they enjoyed life.
And people respected what she did, what she made, but there is a dichotomy there of what the rights were at the same time, and yet there was talent to be recognized.
Yes.
And do you think things are changing, and what still needs to be changed? So give us an idea of, do you think we've made progress, and where we need to make more progress?
I think we've made significant progress. I do remember times when I wasn't allowed to go in the front door of a grocery store, and now I can go in the front door of a grocery store. But you know, there's still a lot of room to grow. There's still a lot of things that need to be done. And I think when we're talking about race relations and things like that, they're hard conversations. They're tough. They make people uncomfortable.
Right.
But they're conversations that have to be had. We've got to be able to sit down at the table and not fight and throw things and get mad and upset, but we've got to be able to talk through them and get through those hard things. And I think as long as we continue to do that, we'll continue to be able to move forward as a country.
Is recognizing the accomplishments of individuals, I feel like it's very important, so we can say, hey, we all do great things. Is that important to you? You know, Do you think schools are doing the job they need to do?
Oh,
Can they
man.
do more when it comes to recognizing the history that's there?
I kind of think there's a little bit of a war on that right now. And, you hear the term CRT, critical race theory, and that brings about a whole range of emotions in a lot of people.
Does it bother you they gave it a label like that? Do you think that hurts the cause of history?
I'm not a real big fan of labels. For one, I know I've used the term here today of African American, but I don't like to be referred to as an African American. I'm an American. I'm from Carthage. I now reside in Joplin and have for a long time. I was born in America. I've served in the military in America. I serve my community now in my civic duties, and I'm just simply an American. I happen to be black, but I think labels that we put on people and how we label things and title things today helps in the division that we sometimes always feel. I think black history is American history. And, I was looking through a list today. You actually texted me about that the other day, about a list of all the things that black inventors have invented. There's a lot of things that we enjoy today that a lot of people don't know that those were born out of the black experience.
Right.
And so I don't know if we necessarily need to label that as, oh, this was black and that was white, or this was Asian and that was Latino, but it's just American. We're this is a melting pot. This is an experiment that we've got going on here in America, and the more and more that we label things, the more and more we keep that division alive.
So as we wrap up, who's a black leader that you look up to?
Oh God, there's so many. There's so many. I just spoke recently on the good Dr. King. I think he was so great in what he did and how he orated the message that he wanted to get out about the black experience and inequality. But if there's one individual that I really would like to sit down with and just talk with, it'd be President Barack Obama. Such a good orator, such a good message deliverer, and was really focused on trying to make things good for all people. And my role in City Council and what I do here locally is kind of the same mission. I don't want to be the black mayor pro tem, and I don't want to be an African American on City Council. I want to be a city councilman that's for all people, and try to make it good for everybody.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing that message.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right. Well, that's all for this episode of Newsmakers. I'm your host, Lisa Oligas. Thanks for watching and have a great day.